Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of the TV is Our Real Mom podcast. I'm Dave.
I'm Catie.
And we're here to discuss episode 11 of Survivor Winners at War. And Catie, how you feeling?
I needed that. I really needed that in my life tonight. So
yes.
I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I agree it was an awesome episode. It was a lot of fun. But like, what did you enjoy so much about it?
Well, I can name a few things. Obviously, the Tony of it all. Tony was the star from the very beginning to the very end of this episode. They didn't even make any bones about it. They were like, this is Tony. Here you go. It's Tony time. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And he did not disappoint. But there were other little things, too. I mean, there was the fashion show, obviously, which was fun. But there was no reward challenge. Like, it was just so much camp life. Everyone's been complaining about not enough time spent at camp. There was a ton of camp stuff this week. And then to top it all off, you had Kim say the words, "What about Ben?" which I haven't heard barely at all. I don't know if we've heard it at all. It didn't pan out, but that's okay. His name is out there now. And then you had Jeremy saying, "Every little thing Ben does annoys me." And I have never felt Jeremy more. I felt him a lot, but I've never felt him more than I did tonight.
Yeah, and on top of all that, the stuff with Jeremy and Tribal Council, like, as he was, like, basically letting Ben slowly realize that, yeah, I know what's going on here, and I got one over on you, man, so sorry about that.
I would do the same thing. If I was sitting next to Ben, and he'd spent that whole Tribal Council thinking he had gotten one over on me, and I knew that in the end, he'd know that I actually got one over on him, I would just beam him into him with those evil eyes, because he deserved it. Especially when you go to the beginning of the episode when they come back from camp and Ben's basically like, "How dare you leave and not let us vote you out?" Like, are you serious right now? He had to leave, Ben. I'm sorry that messed up your plan of voting him out, but he did the right thing. Ugh, that was a lot.
Yeah, so a lot of awesome stuff in this episode. We got a couple comments in the chat right off the bat. Colin Bohannon says, "Oh my God, please can Jeremy and Tony go all the way to the end together? That was amazing."
That was amazing. To see them both, like, when the sun was setting, and see them both like, on the shore, like, Tony being like, "Come on, Jeremy, I'm telling you the truth." And it was so funny, because at the beginning of the episode, Jeremy was totally all in on Tony, when Tony was completely lying to him. And then this time, when he was telling the truth, he wasn't into it so much. But I just really liked that scene of them sitting on the beach. It was very, what's the word? It was epic. Yeah,
that was probably my favorite scene of the episode. And yeah, let's be honest, it would be like really hard to believe Tony when he's telling you something like that.
Yeah, but he did believe him before.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's no reason. It's hard to think of a reason why Tony would tell Jeremy something like this and want to make a move like that, you know, if it wasn't true. It's like, it's hard to imagine how that could all just be made up. I mean, what would be the point of that? And that's probably part of what brought Jeremy around, was he thought about it. He's like, there's really no reason for him to do this. But then, like you say, Tony's gonna Tony. Mm-hmm. So how, you know, he's tough to believe. But
yeah, he's like the boy who cried wolf. And now, after this episode, I mean, obviously from the preview for next week, they know Tony was the instigator in all this, and he's won 2 immunities now, and yeah, that target's going to be big, but he's done it before. It before. They let him get this far, and they might have to pay the price of that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I was thinking after this episode was over. It was like this is what you guys get. Like, I'm so grateful, like, you guys kept him around, like, to make the season actually have a shot at being good in the end game and everything. But it's coming back to bite them now, because, like, you had to know, like, okay, yeah, so Tony's toned it down, and yeah, he's not acting the same, but you had to know at some point the real Tony was going to come out, and you had to know it was calculated, like he was going to come out when it mattered the most, you know. So it was coming,
And
here
now
it
it's
is.
here. And
It's
now he
here.
has an idol, and that could at least buy him one more week, if he doesn't pull some more shenanigans. And I'm trying to even understand the move. Like, Sophie was a huge threat, and he saw that she and Sarah were way too close. And so I understand it from that level. How do you feel about it from any other level? Like, what's that going to do to his relationships now?
Well, I was gonna ask you the same thing because I don't understand. Like, this is like over my head. I don't know if it was a good move or not. I feel like Tony just wanted to make a move. So maybe you can tell me what insights you have on that.
The story we were told is that from the beginning of the episode until after the immunity challenge was that Tony wanted Jeremy out, and he was infiltrating to make those people think that he was on his side. But he pulled people from different groups. So he pulled Nick, who was from that group of 5, and he pulled Jeremy and Michelle, which was from the smaller group, because he saw that Kim and Denise were actually jumping ship because they didn't want to stick their neck out for Jeremy. And then he put together this little group of 4, which is 4 out of 8 is not a majority. but this is not old school Survivor where it's like, 5 against 3 or 4 against 4. That's not really how Survivor works anymore, especially this season. So I saw some people on Twitter being like, Tony's so dumb. Now he only has 4 out of 8 when he would have had 5 out of 8. And I'm like, you really think it's that simple? But, I mean, that's one way to look at it as a not so great move. But, like I said, alliances aren't that simple anymore.
Right. I mean, if you look at it from just a more, like, basic point of view, that, okay, Tony, kudos to him for the math, the numbers, the way he figured all that out. How
4-3-2. That rarely happens.
Right, like he spotted an opportunity and he executed it, and that's amazing. And on top of that, he knocked out Sophie, who I believed was gonna win the game. Like,
on track.
She was on track to win, no question about it, and she had an idol in her pocket. He managed to get her out with that idol in her pocket. So from that standpoint, he knocked out one of the biggest threats in the game, got an idol out of the game, and did it in, like, amazingly strategic fashion. So from that perspective, it was awesome. I don't really have my head around the numbers enough to really understand if it's like a good move or not from him.
Well, what it came down to was, and it ironically seemed to be Sophie's choice. Sophie's decision. Sophie's choice. Let's not think about that sort of thing. Sophie's decision to split the vote. And once Tony sniffed out that they were splitting the vote, or he was told they were splitting the vote, the wheel started turning, and he was like, I could do something here. And he was probably thinking about the Sophie-Sarah relationship for a long time. It didn't just come out of nowhere. But he really does seem defensive of that partnership with Sarah. Like, he doesn't seem like he wants to get rid of her or anything.
But
he just plucked people from each side and was like, let's do this. And so now, the numbers could be anything. I don't even know. Yeah,
and that's a good point you make there, too, is that, I mean, it's the all-winners season. It's not cut and dry like an old school season. It's not like, I only have, now it's 4-on-3, or, it's not like that. It's, the people are going to be all over the place. And the only thing you can really know for sure is that people are going to be gunning for Tony no matter what. I mean, even if he was sitting on his ass playing his tone it down game a couple votes longer than he did, eventually they're gonna be like, Tony's coming, the real Tony's coming. So I mean, it was gonna happen anyways, and I'm so grateful for this episode. And he's got an idol, so hopefully he can play it next week and give us a good run at this thing, because I'm all in on Tony. I want him to win so bad. I don't think it's going to happen.
It's kind of a GOAT episode. Like, if he goes on to win this thing and you have King Tony and Queen Sandra, with 2 completely different styles of playing. Yeah. It's just so interesting to think of the possibilities. It's completely far-fetched because, an idol is good for 1 round and then you're still only at final 7 and then someone comes back. So, several things could happen. But I was also really impressed with Kim, and a little less impressed with Jeremy, how easily he bought into Tony's infiltration, and how Kim was like, no, he's lying. Like, she was right, and Jeremy was duped by Tony.
Yeah, amazing.
But she, again, she's on the wrong side of the vote one more time. Like, Kim has struggled.
Yeah, she's struggling. Struggling.
This is very chaotic.
Yeah, it's tough to follow. GB Ora says, how much money do I have to pay you guys to watch Australian Survivor in the summer?
David has watched it before. Right?
I watched the first season of Australian Survivor. I watched all of it. That was a really good season of Survivor.
Well, look,
honestly,
we're not going to get any new TV and any new Survivor, so chances are it's going to happen.
Yeah. So when you say in the summer, is there like another season airing this summer, or do they mean...
No, just so people can listen to us podcast in the summer when there's nothing to podcast.
So we would go watch like an older season that we haven't seen?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Okay. We'd have to go to season 2, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm probably slightly spoiled because I've probably heard names of people who did well or whatever.
Yeah, but it's like one of those things, you're spoiled, but when you don't know who they're talking about, you just kind of forget.
It's kind of like when I first watched oddly enough, Survivor Australia, like years after it aired, and I'm like, I know this Colby guy. He must win. Colby must be the winner. And I was wrong, but there's a couple. I think Rupert was the same thing. I was like, Rupert must win this season. So maybe it'll be the same thing with Australian Survivor. And
there were some people that were confused, some very casual Survivor fans who were wondering why people like Ozzy and Rupert weren't on this season.
Right? Yeah. I mean, they obviously very touched people. Feel free to drop us any more questions in the comments if you... Questions or comments. Doesn't matter. Okay, what's your question?
What were your thoughts on this extortion deal?
I guess I don't mind it. It's like I was listening to Earl talk to Rob C in his podcast. Wow, he came off as a little arrogant in that podcast. I thought,
that's too bad.
Well,
I didn't listen to it.
I mean, I agree with most of everything he says. It's just like he's really, he's one of those old school winner, probably stopped caring about Survivor after he won.
Sure.
But I mean, he watched it anyways. They were talking, and Earl really likes the fire tokens to mix up the strategy of the game, like a new way. He said he liked idols when those were introduced, and from that perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense. You got to keep finding new ways to make the gameplay more exciting. So from a strategic standpoint, to add more layers of strategy, so the players can actually play a game and not just form alliances and vote one person out, sort of.
I just wonder how they came up with the number 6. I didn't know it was an option to ask for a ridiculous amount.
Yeah, so they could have just asked for 10? 15,
well, I guess maybe
20?
that's why they were saying they wanted to give it to someone like Tony, because if anyone was going to go around scrambling for fire tokens, it would be him.
I mean, if that was their thought process for coming up with how are we gonna get this and who are we gonna give it to, that's really clever, because that's totally accurate. That's exactly what happened. And I wonder.
Yeah, and it was funny how Sarah was bashing Tony's social game during the fashion show thing. How else do you get 6 fire tokens if you don't have good relationships? Right.
And is that where this is going? As Sarah makes it to end on her social game, and
she has done that before.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's the beauty of this season. We don't know where it's going from one week to the next, but
it's been very unpredictable.
It has, but I was very pleased, finally. The cherry on top of this whole beautiful episode was just seeing Ben with that dumbass look on his face. What just happened? And I was like, finally, that's all I've been wanting for 10 weeks. For him to be out of the loop somehow. Yeah,
the line we got from Jeremy when he's like, everything Ben does annoys me. I mean, That was pretty awesome. I mean, wasn't it just last week I told you I was coming around, like, because Ben was really starting to annoy me?
Yep. And now Jeremy's on board.
Yeah. I guess everybody gets annoyed by him eventually, just over time.
Apparently not Denise. Once his name was out there, Denise was like, no. And I was like, come on, Denise, you're my girl. Why you gotta be like that? I suppose, people probably want to sit next to him at the end.
Yeah, I think that's...
You think that's true?
Yeah, I think that's why he's still there. I think a lot of people feel like he's not the person that the jury's going to give the... Not this season. No. They're not going to give it to Ben, and I think everybody picks up on that, and that's why they keep him around. So...
I felt bad for Sophie at the end, how she's like, yeah, I think I'm considered a lower tier winner, and I was like, oh,
yeah. Well, I mean, she's in that atmosphere of the whole podcasting and Reddit world and nerds of Survivor kind of thing.
That's true.
I think she hears a lot of that talk, and a lot of that discussion, and that comes out a lot, I think, is that Sophie, in her season is considered a lower tier winner. But if she chose to focus on the positive, I'm sure there's plenty of people who said Sophie had a lot of agency in her season, so they would give her a lot of credit for the way she won her season.
Yeah, to quote Jonathan Penner, she rode Coach and Albert into the final 3 like oxen, and she just owned that tribal council. And now this season has completely upped her legacy, I would say. I mean, like you said, she was on track to win, but it took this crazy 4-3-2 vote split to get her out.
Right. Which, again, I didn't see coming at all. Until they planted that seed, obviously. Obviously, once they planted the seed that Tony was gunning for Sophie, I pretty much knew that's where it was going, but...
Yeah, like, how you just kind of hear names, like, the first thing was Jeremy, and I was like, that's too easy, it's not going to be that. And then once I heard the Sophie thing, I heard the Ben, and I was like, that's too good to be true. And then I heard the Sophie thing, and I was like, yep, that's it.
It is. That's the one. A lot of times, that's how it goes. I mean, they do mix it up. They keep you guessing, But yeah, a lot of times that's how it goes. You're like, no, not that name. Oh, there's the name that I wasn't expecting. Yeah. That's the person that's going home.
Yeah, sometimes you hear it and you know in some deep part of your heart that it's a name that's going to happen, but you don't want it to be true, so you don't listen to it. Like last week.
Yeah.
Actually, they didn't even really bring up Tyson as an option last week, but I digress.
Yeah, Tyson as the vote out last week, too. That surprised me as well.
That was random.
The last couple votes have been... And from week to week, it's been really unpredictable. But like we said, the season as a whole has gone exactly the way we expected it to. Pretty much, the people that are still in there, and Tony's like the only exception to that. I feel like.
I would say Kim and Jeremy are exceptions to that as well.
No, I always felt like Kim and Jeremy would do well this season. Because you had
they're big targets.
Yeah, no, they still are, as we expected they would be. But of all the big targets, those were the ones I would have expected to make it farther, And Tony's the only exception. But week to week, it's been unpredictable,
Another beautiful thing about tonight's episode, it's like they fixed everything from last week. Although, family visit, whatever. There was no whispering at tribal council.
Yes.
I think maybe they were all embarrassed. They were all just like, even though it was kind of still up, it must not have been up in the air. But there was a last minute switch, but there was no whispering. Everybody was just... I think they felt embarrassed.
There was a last minute switch? What do you mean by that?
Oh, just that Tony... It was late in the game where Tony made that...
Yeah, and yet they still didn't need to... Yeah, I mean, I hope they stopped and thought about, like, how that's going to look on television. And they're like, this is not good for the Survivor fans. Like, this is not what they're looking for.
Nope.
That's not why they watch Survivor. I like when Tony was looking for the idol and he's like, Nick's cramping my style.
As usual, that's Nick's whole arc this season.
Yeah, it's like he's does the thing where he just like comes out from behind a tree. I'm here. Yeah. I didn't love Sarah's fashion show, but
I mean, it was silly, and I always like it when they show little weird moments around camp. Like when Michelle was telling Nick that he looked like a vampire. I was like,
yeah.
That's interesting.
I definitely thought that before. I think
he does have the teeth.
he's got the teeth, and he does have like I'm one to talk. I'm very fair skinned, but he has that kind of like pale right, kind of complexion as well.
And he gets that very pretty boy look after he's been on the island a long time, you know?
Yeah.
He loses a little bit of weight, he gets the facial hair, he just looks kind of pretty boy.
Yeah, like, well, he's got bright eyes too, you know? Mm-hmm. Bright eyes, fangs, pale, good looking, slick hair. Yeah, I mean, the vampire thing is accurate. It is. I think I remember thinking that when he was in the like previews before David vs. Goliath. I was like, he looks like a vampire.
Yeah, apparently the internet said that a lot, and I think I remember that. Yeah.
Did I hear something about Donathan too? Did he say like the internet said I'm the
Donathan vampire because he's from Kentucky,
right? Yeah.
And Donathan's season had just been on.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that makes sense. Okay. I wrote down Sophie wonders about Idol, but I don't know what that's about.
Well, she thought there was, because Kim played an idol, she thought there was another one out there. And so she decided to split the vote and nip it her in the ass.
That's poetic.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Crazy. I feel bad that Sophie had to be the victim of this terrific episode. But, I mean, as a testament to how good it was, I'm not even that mad. It's just kind of a bummer. Edge of Extinction does this a lot, where the person who's voted out is often not featured at all in the episode because they're like, oh, we have Edge of Extinction, footage. Yeah. But it's like Sophie was such a big part of this season and her boot episode, and she's not even like, until right before the vote, isn't really even talked to.
Yeah. I don't know that bothers me that much. They don't need to like really drill in on the person who goes home that week or anything. Yeah, because then it's like telegraphing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that too. And and just reminding us that person is there and is in the game is enough, really. Like the shots of her with the microphone, which I used for the thumbnail for this video was Sophie with the. But just reminding us she's there is enough before she gets the boot. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to just focus solely on. I mean, if a person was going by the edit, they would say Tony was going home. Yeah, I mean, I was 100% convinced Tony was toast. And then he won immunity. Yeah. Did he pay anybody back? That they never showed that, I don't think, so we don't know. But that was interesting to consider. Like, should he pay anybody back, or should he just keep the two for himself? And he should pay Nick and Jeremy because they voted with him, and Ben is on his own. Yeah, because he borrowed 3. Ben gave him 1, but didn't vote with him. Yeah. Did you catch Ben saying, "It's quick. It's crazy how quick a million goes"? I know. I mean, that discussion must go on a season like this because they all have at least $1 million, or had it at one point. So they must talk. What'd you do with your mill, But they just slipped that in there, like in the background. I thought that was funny. I know. I feel like they do a lot of that this season, where they come in the middle of a conversation, like the vampire thing and the $1 million thing. It's like, does $1 million go quickly? I guess I wouldn't know, but I'm guessing it does for people with kids. Kids are expensive. Smart with it, and you're like, I'm putting this much here, and you just like place it all where it needs to go right away. College fund for kid 1. College fund for kid 1, 2, 3. There goes most of it, and pay off part of the mortgage, and it's gone because taxes took half. So I guess I feel that in a way. I mean, I don't, but I get it. No, I certainly don't. I can envision it, but I don't relate at all. I can fathom it. Yeah. Sure. I thought it was really cool how Tony, and this makes Tony look even better, how he had the confessional where he talked about how he wanted to time the timing of it. Like he's ready to drop this bomb. He's watching the sunset, and he's like, when the sun gets over there, then I'm gonna go drop the bomb. I mean, that's the shit. That's the reason I watch Survivor right there. Yeah. I love stuff like that. Beautiful. I love strategy that, you know what I'm trying to say. I can't articulate it very well, but Yeah, that's why I love Survivor. Moves like that, thoughts like that, those ways of thinking, and when people can manage to execute them.
Yeah, just seeing those two, brains on the beach, Jeremy and Tony, who I never in a million years I would ever see playing Survivor together. And the shot was just beautiful, and how you saw Tony just being so earnest and wanting Jeremy to listen so he could pull off this move, and Jeremy being like, I just don't know.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so perfect because it's all the only way Jeremy can survive is by doing what Tony says here. It's just too perfect. Back to what Cullen was saying, can Jeremy and Tony go all the way to the end together? I mean, obviously we want that. I mean, that would be the freaking sickest final two of all time if there was if it was a final two. But I don't see that happening. I mean, they want to keep each other around for maybe a couple more votes, because they both like the idea of the shield strategy, which was another thing that Earl said has been around forever. It's not the human shield didn't start with Jeremy or whatever. No. But anyways, I don't think they really trust each other that much. They're both employing the shield strategy. That's all. Before
he jumped ship and switched the vote to Sophie, he was talking about, I love Jeremy, man, but I can't take him to the end. Like, he just stated it as a fact. Like, I can't take him to the end.
Yeah, exactly.
So, to me, that says, even though he's utilizing Jeremy right now, if Tony continues to drive the boat, I mean, that could totally change because Tony's Tony. But, if it's up to him, he's not going to the end with Jeremy. Right. I wonder if he wants to go to the end with Sarah.
I don't know why he would want that. She's so likable.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked a lot in past podcasts, and I think a lot of people agree with us that, like, Sarah wasn't landing as a big character or anything. Like, but it's come out time and time again how likable she is in person and how much the people she plays with love her. So, I mean, Tony must have some awareness of that, so I don't know why you would want to go to the end with her. Doesn't look like he's going to have to worry about that anymore because Sarah is straight up saying, like, I'm done with you, Yeah,
but that's in the preview, which, you got to take with a grain of salt. But if he just watched that fashion show, which I don't think he did because he said he was like, hell no, I'm leaving. But he would see how dangerous she is because she put that whole thing together and everybody was having so much fun, loving it, and that's a dangerous person.
Yes, it is.
I'm sure he knows that.
Right. I think you're right, though. He seems to want to go to the end with her. I just don't understand why. I guess you got to go to the end with somebody, and it's, like, tough to figure out who you want to go with. I think Nick's a no-brainer. Ben's a no-brainer. Nick and Ben, go to the end with those guys. I mean, I don't see them having...
I hate to say it, but maybe Michelle is kind of a no-brainer. Anyone without kids, for sure. I feel like Nick and Michelle.
Yeah, it sucks that that's the way it is, but because, like, I personally think Michelle's playing a pretty good game. Honestly,
she is.
They're part of that is, like, the edit is showing us enough of her that we can, form that opinion. But yeah, they're showing her in a good light with having some agency and it's unfortunate because I totally agree with you that this whole, like, having kids thing, whether or not you have kids, it's such a dividing factor in social relationships, like whether you bond with somebody or not, because, like, having kids is such a life-changing experience and it changes your whole life. So people with kids just relate to each other better and they can't relate to people without kids anymore, and it's that comes into Survivor, and it sucks because I think you're right. I think that's I think Michelle can't win because of that.
I mean, it's not even completely about that, though. It's also like $2 million.
Yeah,
like someone with kids could do a lot more with that, than someone who's just got themselves, which is an asinine way of thinking about it. But these are older players, and the majority of them have small children that need to be, taken care of.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think it's at the very least equal parts of both those things of, like, the bonding over kids and I don't want to give $2 million to somebody who who's not going to just spend it on their kids. Like, I don't want them to have fun with it. I want them to be responsible with it, and that's not fair. It's just not fair. No. But Survivor isn't fair. Life isn't fair.
No, it's not. I mean, on that token, it'd be nice to see someone who doesn't have kids win. But right now, our only options are Nick and Michelle, or someone coming back from extinction, like Wendell or Sophie or Adam. But
Natalie, I don't think Natalie has kids.
Natalie's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie again, Queen of Extinction. Her and Parvati. That was smart of them to not tell anybody.
Yeah. So what do they have, like 3 coins each in their pocket now?
I guess, which is pretty good. It was a deal well struck. They both came out Survivor billionaires again.
Yeah, I mean, but these advantages, I was disappointed in the Edge of Extinction, like, challenge advantages that were available. It's like, I guess there were more options available to them, but people weren't buying them all. They just bought the one. For the Edge challenge.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't think it's a big enough payoff. I don't think the coins have enough value from that standpoint. You gotta make them, they gotta figure out a way to make them have more value. You know?
I mean, Tony was talking about how they have no value anymore, how there's inflation, and it costs six tokens just to get your own vote that you had 2 hours ago.
And yeah, and what can you even do with them? Like, you can buy one advantage. Well, you can buy more than one, but people only ended up buying one that mattered, and only one person gets in. So, I mean, they don't seem to have any value, you know?
They're probably just gonna keep buying peanut butter, maybe some wine or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. If you start thinking about, like, you know, starving, and here's an opportunity to give yourself some energy to, you know, push through and win the challenge to get back in. I guess there's some value there as well.
It seemed like after the Tyson thing and after the first challenge, they came to the realization that the only value we're going to get out of these tokens is food.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that's all they use it on anymore.
Sure. Michelle said kick in the pants she was talking about advantages. It's like a kick in the pants or something like that. I feel like that's not the first time she said kick in the pants.
In what context? How did she use that?
I don't know. Okay. My notes are bad. My memory's bad. One. I don't know why I podcast, frankly. I mean.
No, I just didn't remember her saying that. That's okay. No big deal.
Jeff talks about landmines again. He keeps laying on the war lingo.
He really is trying to hit that home, and it's like, why does anyone want to equate anything to war? I mean, I get that it makes you feel like warriors, but can we not talk about, like, actual weapons of war? You know?
Yeah.
That's kind of dark.
And then I think, didn't Ben say, like, something about dropping a bomb in response to the landmines question directed at Ben? So, like, it's just like, I said it last week.
Ben doesn't understand metaphors and analogy. When Nick said the word paradox, Ben was like...
I mean, I think that's why Jeff feeds Ben these war analogies, because they're, like, so simple. Like, it's like a softball to Ben. You know?
You've been in war, right, Ben? Right? Am I doing it right?
Yeah, and I don't know why they made such a big deal about his PTSD, and they're like,
I know.
They're like, this season's called Winners at War, and
remember landmines?
Remember bombs? Yeah, like that's insane.
Use that tropes.
That's insane to me.
Yeah. Not very delicate there.
Oh, I liked Sophie's. I like Sophie's analogy. Now that was actually a good one. She's good with these. About the annoying girl at school who's in everything, and
I was like, I knew that girl.
Yeah, you were that girl. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I was definitely not that girl.
Yeah, you were in, like,
I know who she's talking about.
You were like a normal kid that was in, like, a couple things, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not like you didn't do anything, but you weren't in everything.
Right.
What was she comparing that to again? Like, what was the analogy?
They were talking about resumes.
Resumes,
and
yeah.
padding resumes with moves just to make moves. And then I started thinking about Tony's move, and I was like, is he making this move just to make this move? But it's afterwards, hard. I mean, if you go through Twitter afterwards and just, watching it in your own brain, what happened was an epic move.
Yeah.
Whether or not it pays off down the line is yet to be seen. But it was an amazing thing to behold, and it will not be forgotten.
Right. Yeah, I think whether or not this was a good move, unfortunately, is going to be results oriented. You can only look back and say, from the results, and say, yes, that was a good move. Like, I just can't see it any other way, really.
Not right now, no. Yeah. But we don't have a hindsight right now.
But yeah, to be honest, I do believe to some extent that this was Tony making a move just to make a move, to some extent, because it's Tony. And
that's
once again, MO. Tony's gonna Tony. It's time for Tony to play, and he
kept it in check for half the season. Over half the season.
Which is unbelievable. So, I mean... Yeah, of course Tony was going to make a big move here. Second week in a row he had the necklace. And when you get something to line up and you get an idea that good, how do you not pull the trigger on it?
Yeah, like I said, once he saw that they were splitting it, he was like, he must have just been like, I can't not do something. I can't.
Yeah, great players talk all the time about how in Survivor you can't really plan, you can't plan your game, you can't plan your path to the end. Because it's going to change in 3 days. Like some new obstacle is going to present itself. So if you're looking at the move in front of you today and what's the best move to make right now, just from your gut, I think it's a great move. So.
Yeah. Do you think he was emboldened by the necklace, by having won immunity?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I don't think
he wouldn't have done it.
I don't think so. No, because then I think it would be probably not smart of him to do that if he didn't have it, because then Tony's going home for sure.
In that sense, it actually did pay off a lot for Jeremy to invest in Tony and give him a fire token. It worked out really well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would have gone home.
Yep. Any other thoughts on the episode?
Again, it was just such a beautiful thing to have.
Yeah.
Now.
I like when Tony was reading the extortion note to Nick.
He was so excited to Nick.
And Nick went, what? Or like he did like a what?
I feel like that's Nick's role. Like, Nick's just kind of like this tag-along guy who's going to help you out in a vote. Yeah. He's not driving anything. And I didn't expect him to because he's a newer winner. And no one would take him seriously if he tried to, like, power through and make big moves,
Yeah, and that's all it is. It's like a status... It's a matter of status from, like you said, he's the newest winner. So not only does he have the look about him like a younger brother or like your buddy or whatever. Hey, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not only does he have that look, but he's got the status of being the newest winner. So they're all looking at him like that. There's nothing he could do.
No.
He's doomed.
He's hanging in there. He's
I mean, do that. Do your best, but you're doomed. You can't win.
I really kind of think he is.
Yeah.
But
and in his season, he showed us that he's a really smart guy. He gets Survivor from the inside out. Apparently, he's like a patron to Rob Has a Podcast and like, big fan of Survivor strategy and all that shit.
He's a big international Survivor and Big Brother person too. Like, he's in all of it.
Yeah, I mean, like, so this is a guy who gets all of this stuff, right? He gets it. But a lot of Survivor is luck and is out of your hands, and that's where Nick is. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Do you have any more questions or anything?
No.
Sorry.
That stopped.
No? Okay.
I guess we never really answered how much money to watch Australian Survivor.
I mean, we'll be so bored this summer without any TV, it'll probably just happen organically.
It might, but we might have to open up a PayPal to get some money out of GB. Or maybe we'll start a Patreon. I don't know. We'll see.
A dream. A dream for another day.
What did you think of Michelle's lie to... Was it Tony? Yeah, Tony wanted money. He wanted tokens.
I thought it was good for being on the spot, but if you could pick that apart if you'd give it any kind of thought.
Yeah. Tony was like too wrapped up in everything going on to really dissect it because he bought it. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's like an amazing lie, but it's not terrible either. It's good enough to pass the test. Yeah. It's like
weak and benign enough for you to be like, oh, yeah, Tony was too focused on his goal.
Mm-hmm. Kim has a confessional where she says, yeah, Tony just won 2 immunity challenges. Go for it, Tony. Yeah. Go for it. Just keep doing that.
I don't think he wanted to win. Like, Jeremy kind of fell out of nowhere. He was maybe already thinking about letting... I don't know what would happen if Jeremy would have won, but he looked kind of bummed out that he won.
Yeah, he looked it really surprised him when he won, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, crazy. All right, who you got for MVP this episode?
I mean, you can't give it to anybody else, can you?
Well, Tony, yeah, I mean,
it 100%. He was the star of the episode from the beginning to the end. I mean, and he pulled off the move, he got an idol, he won immunity. I don't know how you could give it to anybody else.
I'll say it again, I feel like we give Tony the MVP every week, but...
Well, if there was ever a week.
Yeah, I mean...
didn't know we had this coming. I thought our Tony time was limited, so I'm like, give it to Tony while you can.
Yeah.
And here he is, like...
Yeah, and I mean, if you're going to have a season with Tony in it, you should expect that Tony will get the MVP every damn episode.
Yeah.
This should be expected.
And it makes a lot of sense now why he was kind of low... I mean, he was playing low-key in the beginning, but, like, the only things you saw from him were the goofy stuff, like the ladder and the shark and all that, but other than that, Tony was very, very quiet. Now it makes sense.
Yeah, he had a lot more game to come. So Tony gets 2 MVPs this week. Preview for next week looks like people gunning for Tony, obviously.
But are pissed.
Yeah, but he says his tactics have evolved, and now he's taking it out of the spy shack. No more spy shack. No more spy bunker. He's going into the spy tree. Or the spy nest. The spy nest.
Do you think he used his ladder?
I bet he used the Tony ladder to get into the Tony nest and do some spy.
God. I can't believe that.
So that's amazing.
Smart, though, no one's gonna look up there.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, it looked like it was working. Like, it looked like he was actually listening. So him having an idol and getting to hear people say, I want Tony gone, that's going to be enough for him to survive the next week, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't think he's going next week.
He would, if he plays an immunity idol to save himself next week, he's probably going the week after, but still more Tony.
Final 7 there. We're already down to the final 7 then.
Yeah, getting into it. So yeah, who do you got to go home next week then?
Oh man, I say Ben or Sarah every goddamn week, and I have yet to be right. So let me just pick somebody else.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Denise.
Oof, yeah, it's so possible. Her time is like. Her time is up. I mean, I just don't see her.
There hasn't been enough of her. Yeah. There's been a severe lack of Denise on my screen. She doesn't deserve it after the move she pulled. She deserves screen time.
Yeah, at this point, though, it's just starting to look like she's not winning this season, and she's got to go sooner or later. So, I mean, this would be an appropriate time.
Did you listen? Yeah, did you listen to the Malcolm's podcast when he was on? He was saying how after the merge, she was just you're not gonna see her. And he has been correct.
Yeah.
We have not really seen her.
Right, yeah. Except
what does that mean, though?
I thought her visibility in this episode, whatever little it was not good. Like, it was her getting duped, basically like, sorry, I feel bad, we have to trick him. We have to lie to him, we got one over on him. But then, they get duped. Because feels like that. I feel like that paints them in a bad light and doesn't bode well. I don't know. But yeah, no, she's Malcolm was right about that for sure. By the way, I love Malcolm. Like, you listen to him on the podcast. It's like, this is a special guest. You know, he's special. Yeah. You know, I think so.
They had Christian also that week. Christian and Malcolm.
That was like a home run week for a podcast. Like, grand slam. Epic.
Yep.
Oh.
So who do you think's going home?
Let's see. Tell me who's left in the game.
Kim, Michelle, Sarah, Denise, Jeremy, Tony, Ben, Nick. 4 and 4. 4 men, 4 women.
Sure seems like it's gonna be Denise. I'll say Kim.
It could be Jeremy. Yeah, okay. That's a good pick too.
Kim.
Because they're very tight. They're working together, and they're mad at Tony, and Tony might idle one of them out.
Yeah. Let's go with Kim.
That would suck.
Okie doke.
What are you gonna do?
Is that it?
That's it.
All right. You guys got any questions out there? Comments? I see there's like 3 people. Any final thoughts?
3 people.
Give you 10 seconds.
Tier 1 episode.
Yeah,
Remember we used to say that?
Yeah, I mean, I've asked you a couple times if you thought these episodes were tier 1.
This one was tier 1.
I think there was one you said yes. Early on.
The Denise episode.
It's probably like the premiere or something.
Well, that was pretty tier 1.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, it's been an awesome season. There's been some frustrations, but it's been what we need.
I feel like Tony's keeping the end game exciting right now. Because you could easily see, like, Tony goes home, Kim goes home, Sophie goes home, and then you're left with, like, Nick, Michelle, Ben. It's like, ugh. So, yeah. Tony keeping it exciting. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can follow us on Twitter at TV is Our Real Mom. And we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Bye.